whatever you want to do or whatever line of business you want to get into, go in there with an open mind and just have a learning mindset. Don't be too concerned with the outcome. Be more concerned with the process of what you're doing.
From cornfields to high-rises, office to industrial, houses to hotels, and every other asset class in real estate, we cover the people, the projects, and the profit. Welcome to the Investing in Iowa show. This show is for go-doers, action takers, and business owners. It's for people like you who are sick of Uncle Sam taking a huge bite of your apple. If you're looking to get ahead of what's taking place in Iowa, learn who is doing what, and how you can get in on the action, you're in the right place. Hosted by Neil Timmins, an Iowa native who has been involved in over $300 million in real estate right here in Iowa. Recording in studio from West Des Moines. Here's your host, Neil Timmins.
I've got Phil Giudici here. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited you're here. Say for the audience to say, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
So my name is Philip Giudici, kind of like you said, and I'm from Des Moines, Iowa here. We're actually just around the corner from the high school that sounds like we both went to, Dowling.
Yeah.
Graduated there in 2016 and went to Arizona State after that and kind of spent the last 8 years in Arizona for the most part, and recently moved back here to continue my real estate adventure, I guess you could say.
Yeah. What took you to Arizona State from here?
My dad, so he went to Arizona State, and then my aunt teaches there too.
Okay.
So it was kind of a no-brainer growing up in the cold, half the year.
Yeah, right.
And I knew pretty much halfway through high school that I wanted to go out of state, and knowing my dad went to ASU, I figured it was a perfect fit because it's warm down there. But there's a lot of people at that campus. Making connections is really easy to do over there. Tempe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful campus.
Beautiful. Yep. A lot of things about that campus are really beautiful.
What'd you study?
I studied business marketing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't finish. I ended up only doing about a year and a half.
What prompted that?
So, that'll kind of take us into the sort of the door-to-door story here. About a year in the fall semester of my sophomore year at Arizona State, I was in a fraternity there, and one of our older fraternity brothers who had already graduated came and presented to our fraternity about his door-to-door operation that he was running out in Southern California, Orange County, knocking on doors during the summer and selling pest control. And when he came in and he made the presentation, I was like, this might be the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
Wow.
I didn't even know people knocked on doors still. I thought that was like a thing of the 80s or,
50s? Yeah.
Yep. And, he kind of came in there and just talked about how much money you could potentially make in the summer. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so I went out there the summer after my sophomore year with like 10 of my fraternity brothers. I think only like 3 or 4 of us finished that summer.
Sounds right.
Yeah, we went out there and worked for an amazing pest control company, learning some really good sales and kind of just learn how to hit the pavement and make things happen. Basically 10 hours a day. We were out there knocking on doors, talking to 50 to 100 people a day, getting doors slammed in my face left and right. And definitely built some thick skin that summer for sure.
What jive with you about that?
I just think it was, it's so out of the box. It's just so out of the norm. And I feel like I've always been somebody who's just kind of skipped to my own beat. And I always knew I wanted to get into business and develop skills to make things happen. And I figured, if I'm going to go learn how to sell, why don't I just go start in the hardest way to do it, And, anything else I do after that will probably seem easy. So, yeah, I did a couple summers with that pest control company. And believe it or not, I mean, there's people in door to door making a few $100,000 every summer, just knocking on doors. You would never believe it.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah. So, I went out there that first summer and I think I made like 50 grand, and I'm like 20 years old. I thought I was rich.
Yep, you're hooked.
Yep. And then after that summer, I called my parents and I said, hey, this is how much I made. I'm going to give this another shot next summer. And I don't want to go back to school because I feel like I could probably make a lot more doing this. So I'm going to not pay for school anymore. I'm just going to hang out with my friends during the school year and not go to school. So kind of had the best of both worlds there. But I went out the next summer and doubled what I made the first summer. And I just told my parents, I was like, yep, I'm never going back to college.
Yeah.
So
what did you learn? Door-to-door sales, obviously resilience, you really a thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn about actually selling?
It's a really good question. I think what I learned, I'd say the biggest takeaway, just besides like the work ethic and developing the thick skin, is probably just realizing that you can't talk to every person the same way. Can't sell every person the same way.
But nobody's the same.
Oh, because there would be times where I'd knock on a door and, an 85-year-old grandma would come out, and I can't talk to her like I would the alpha 35-year-old male who's making $700,000 a year and, thinks he's on top of the world. So you kind of have to learn to play to both, different sets of egos, I guess, if you will. I'm not going to talk to them the same. And so it took me a few months into that summer to really kind of pick up on those things. And over the next 5 years of my door-to-door career, I really honed in on those skills, and I think I got pretty good at it. So
all right, so fast forward, get through your second summer, cool, you're decided, I'm in, but
yep. So
during the year, I guess, what did you do then after that second summer during the school year that you didn't go to school?
So what I did is I came back and I said, all right, forget school.
Came back to Arizona at that point? Yeah.
Yep. So I still lived with all my fraternity brothers there, still did all the partying, had all the fun. I just didn't have to go to class, which it was amazing. I truly feel like I had the best college setup that anybody could have ever asked for because I was 20 years old, thousands of dollars in the bank account. I wasn't going to school. I was living with my fraternity brothers. I was still a part of the fraternity. It was awesome. But what I did is I came back and I showed people, hey, this is how much I made. Come work for me next summer. So the next summer, I brought out a team of, 10 or 15 guys and managed that team and, made more money. And not only did I learn how to sell, but I also learned how to, or at least I dipped my toes into the management side of sales, which was really cool to learn as well. But after that second summer, I kind of realized like the pest control route maybe wasn't my career path, I guess. I just didn't really see a whole career in it. It was really good money for the time being, especially as a college kid.
Right.
So I transitioned into another door-to-door industry. It was actually selling water softeners in Arizona. Yeah. And the reason I really was attracted to this job, and this will kind of segue into real estate here, is the owner of this water softener company was an undercover cop for 25 years before he started this. And so I thought, I was 21, 22 years old at the job, or at the time. I'd made some good money and thought I knew everything about sales at that time. I started working under this guy, and when I was out there and he was training me, he was telling me things I had never even heard of. And just the way he goes about looking at the houses and analyzing people and basically bringing his 25 years of undercover cop experience into sales. So he was almost like a private investigator scoping out these homes. It was really cool to learn.
He'd have to be he's a master of people, I suspect.
He was the best closer I've ever seen. Yeah. In my life.
What would make someone the best closer that you've ever seen? What is it that leads up to that? Because I think a lot of people, they hear, you got to close it. And it's, most people's minds go forward to the spot where, it's the last 10 seconds before somebody gets to a yes, or somebody signs. My experience, I'm curious about yours. My experience is oftentimes it's all the persuasion that takes place. It's everything up in advance, including the hello from the second they open that door.
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I think first off, it was his presence, his confidence, and his tonality. He is really good at stressing the right syllables, pausing, making sure that people really understood him. And so pretty much by the time he got to the end, when it was time to ask for the deal, people they were like begging for it.
Right.
And so that's where I learned to start kind of closing early and often, but doing it subtly and smoothly. So everything he was doing throughout the sale, he was closing. And yeah, it was really cool to watch. And even when he would get to the end and there would be a lot of objections, he was amazing at handling them. And I think there was maybe only 1 or 2 times I ever saw him not walk out of that house without a deal.
Yeah.
So
incredible. All right. So you learned a ton from him. You spent a summer there in the water.
Yeah,
biz.
That was Phoenix. And then at the end of that year, I was considering starting my own water softener company because I felt like I had a really good understanding of the business at that point. Yeah. But that was also when the solar gold rush was kind of taking off at that time.
In my mind, I was like, I wonder if the from pest to solar. All right, I figured we were going to get to solar sooner or later.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I had a couple buddies in Miami that were selling solar at the time. I'd never been to Miami before, and they were buddies that I worked with in pest control originally. They had made the switch at the same time I made the switch to water. And so it was like the end of 2021, and they reached out and said, hey, come check it out. So I went out there, fell in love with the city. I saw some decent paychecks that they were making and ended up making the move out there for the next 2 years. I lived in Miami selling solar, which is really cool because Miami, for anybody who hasn't been there, it's kind of like it's not even the United States, but it's in the United States. It really feels like it's a mixture of, the United States culture mashed with like the South American culture.
Yeah.
So I was selling
Central South America, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was selling a completely different audience there. And it was really, really cool because I picked up on a little bit of Spanish, but learn again, it goes back to the point of you can't talk to everybody the same. You can't sell everybody the same. And when you're learning a whole different culture, you kind of got to learn what works and what doesn't. So there was a little bit of trial and error there at the beginning, but we got it down and it was really cool. So between solar, the water industry, and pest control, I learned 3 different sales from a ton of different really good sales guys, and kind of just molded me into the salesperson I am today. And I've just taken a little bits and pieces from all those guys.
Sure. The easiest of those 3 products to sell, which was what?
The quickest sale you're going to get is pest control.
Sure.
Because you can go knock on somebody's door and you can point out bugs, and you can start them at this price. And then when they say no, you can drop it down to this price and then keep dropping it down. And you can just be like the neighborhood bug boy and, kind of the innocent kid out there knocking doors. Solar's a little bit different because you're qualifying them for a loan. It's an hour-and-a-half sit in the home. It's a little bit more complicated, but it was amazing to learn both sides because all that time sitting at the table with these homeowners has really transitioned into what I do now in real estate, where, it's just you and me at the table and we're going to figure this out. And, I'm not leaving until we do, pretty much.
Hey, Iowa investors, this is Ava Baukamp, Chief of Staff at Legacy Impact Investors. Have you thought about adding real estate to your portfolio but don't have the time or desire to play landlord? At Legacy Impact Investors, we do the heavy lifting. Our team finds the deals, manages the properties, and handles all the day-to-day operations. Our select group of qualified investors co-invest with us, gaining ownership equity without opening a tenant email or responding to a maintenance call. They just share in the income, appreciation, and tax benefits. These opportunities aren't for everyone. They are for qualified, accredited investors only. If you want to learn more, please visit legacyimpactinvestors.com to apply.
So let's fast forward to there. Bring me real estate. You get done with solar, you're done in Miami. What happens?
Yep. Well, at the end of my solar run, I had a buddy in Arizona who I had knocked doors with in pest control as well, who was out there wholesaling. And I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about real estate. I always knew I wanted to invest in real estate with the money I made from sales, but he kind of pitched me on the idea of saying, hey, come out here, learn how to give offers, like come work with me. And then you're just going to naturally learn how to invest in real estate when you're picking it up for pennies on the dollar. And I was like, okay. So I ended up moving back to Arizona after a lot of phone calls and, a lot of talks. And pretty much what we did for about a year straight is we would knock on doors in Phoenix and we would get homes under contract. While those homes were under contract, we would go and find another investor who might want to pay $20,000 or $30,000 more for the home. And we would assign those contracts over and we would make that difference, once the property closed. So it was really cool. We built a whole proprietary app and CRM when we were out there. We had one of our college buddies do that. And so we had really, really, really good data on a lot of really good lists out there. So each day we would wake up and we would kind of queue up our route for the day and we'd go knock doors for 10 hours a day by car. So we would drive around all of Phoenix.
Yeah, because what you're doing there, you're not working a neighborhood, you're working a list, you're working a house inside of a neighborhood.
Yep.
You're pulling data to narrow that down.
Exactly. Okay. Yep. So yeah, not working a neighborhood. Yep. We're working one home in that neighborhood over 20 or 30 different neighborhoods in Phoenix. So that was really cool. That's kind of where everything started in real estate.
I'm curious. Let's go down the data hole, the rabbit hole.
Sure.
Where does one get the data? What does one call on? I think I hear this a lot, certainly from the realtor crowd, is I can't believe that people sell their home as is. Is there really that big a market in the non-realtor world? Non-realtor, not even for sale by owner. I use that in quotes, meaning with the sign in the yard and someone's going to show the home. I mean, these are people selling their home as is, generally a level of distress, and they have needs, and the traditional avenue is not particularly efficient in solving those needs.
Yeah, no, that's a a great point. So it's funny because when I talk to a lot of realtors who have only dealt with on-market stuff, they don't really know the other side of investing when it comes to off-market.
Sure.
And what I think even a lot of real estate investors, what I don't think they realize is that a lot of these distressed houses are typically a burden to the owners, because anybody who owns a home knows that it costs money to upkeep it, especially when it's distressed and it has more problems. It's just one thing after another, and then it's a snowball effect. So, most of the times these homes that are in poor condition are owned by people who live there and either A, don't want to live there, B, don't live there and own it, and it's a burden on their shoulders, or there could be other reasons. But the key to all that is reaching out to those people and saying, hey, I'm interested in your home. Would you be open to taking an offer? And most of the time, even if they're not really willing to sell, a lot of times they're somewhat open to at least showing you the home and maybe just seeing what somebody would pay for their house.
Yeah.
So,
it's incredible when it moves from what a house is for most of us, an asset, then it moves into the liability column.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, when it falls into that column, that's where these as-is sales, off-market distress, they're liabilities.
They are.
For folks.
Yep. And fortunately here in Des Moines, there is a lot of liability homes. And I say fortunately because as an investor, I look at that as, it's a honeypot. It's the land of milk and honey. It's unfortunate for the owners because they kind of own these liabilities. But we as investors have the ability to go to these owners and make a not so good situation a win-win all around. We can take that property off their hands. We can put some money in their pocket. We can make the whole process super easy when we pay for closing costs and kind of hold their hand through the whole process all the way through. And then we get a really good deal for having the courage to go out and make it happen and putting two and two together. That's really what business is. It's just solving people's problems. And the better you can be at that, the more money you'll make.
In Phoenix, so you're going around neighborhood to neighborhood, house to house, and is the methodology always knock?
Good question.
You can call, text.
You can do it. There's so many ways. Many ways.
Yeah.
I think me, just with my background, coming from a door-to-door background where, I've knocked on thousands and thousands and thousands of doors and talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It's second nature to me at this point. So my preferred I'm an in-person kind of guy. If I can get something done in person, I'm going to do that. Because over the phone, you don't really know what their body language is like. You don't know their facial expressions.
Communication.
Exactly. Yeah. Primarily what I would do is I would go to these homes. A lot of times they'd be vacant. I'd go to these homes and I'd knock the door. If they answer, I'm having a conversation with them about their house and, if they've thought about selling or, what's kind of the situation here based on what I already know about the house. And if it's vacant, I'm going to knock the door. Okay, nobody's here. It looks pretty vacant. I'm going to go talk to the neighbors now.
Yeah.
Because the neighbors love feeling important. Because when you go and ask them, what do you know about this house over here? I'm just curious. I might be interested in buying it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh, it's been vacant for 3 years. Let me tell you. So then they spill all the beans that you need to know in order for you to go back to your laptop, pull up Facebook, pull up LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. There's so many different ways to figure it out. But then, it's knock first, research second on a lot of that stuff.
Terrific. And then research second, and then come up with a different methodology of communicating.
Yep.
Whatever that may be.
Yep.
All right. In advance of that, it all starts with knowing what house do I even knock on. I've got a list.
Yep.
So how do you go from, there's 200,000 homes in the city down to something that might resemble, a potential lead?
That's a good question. And it's kind of like the $1 million question in off-market real estate investing. Right. It's like, especially for people getting into it, they're like, what list do I go after? Like, what's the best list? I don't really think there is a best list.
Right.
But I do think there are ways to go about it better than other ways. So what I mean by that is, there's probates. That's all public information with the county. There's tax.
Yeah. And for anybody who doesn't know what probate is, somebody died.
Yep.
And if they've got a house left behind, things going to happen to that property.
Something's going to happen.
Family members are going to move into it. Who knows? Or, statistically, the property's getting sold.
Yep. And a lot of times the family will take it over and they may want to keep it in the family or whatever. And that's probably 70 or 80% of the time. But that other 20% of the time, people are left with a home that they don't want because somebody in their family passed away and it was willed to them. Mm-hmm. And now it's on their plate and they're like, well, what the heck do I do now? And that's where people like me come in and say, hey, I see you're the executor, which for people that don't know that term, it's just the person that's taking over the home. I see you were listed as the executor of this house. I'm just curious, do you guys have plans with this property? Are you planning on keeping it? Are you thinking about selling it? Kind of where's your head at here? Maybe 1 in 20 people might say, we don't know what to do. We just have this house and we need to figure it out. Perfect. Yeah. Let's talk.
All right. So back to the list. Probates. What's next?
So there's probates, there's homes that are tax delinquent, right? So people that can't keep up with their taxes probably aren't keeping up with their home super well, more likely than not. And then there's also list stacking too. So anytime I can see, there's ordinance violations, right? So, and for people that don't know what those are, that's just when like a neighbor calls in to the city and says, hey, my neighbor, their grass is so long and their trees are hanging over my fence. Yeah. They're not doing anything about it. That's an indication that, someone's just not really taking care of their property super well. But when you see an ordinance violation, but they're also tax delinquent and they also have a lot of equity in their home, I'm kind of looking at that situation like, okay, they have a lot of equity. That means if they sell, they can actually make something. They're not taking care of their home because their neighbors are calling their house into the city to complain, and they're not keeping up with their taxes. So there's a situation going on at this house that could lead to them wanting to sell. Just gotta either call or knock or send them a mailer, whatever your preferred method is, and go figure it out.
List stacking. So you touched on it. I'll define it a little bit. Just correct me here or add to it if you would. The idea being, let's take these multiple pieces of data and let's stack these up. Ultimately, you force rank them. You end up with a list.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Ideally being this person at the top may conceivably be more motivated because there's more factors.
Exactly. Yep. The more kind of green flags that you can attach to that home. And what I mean by green flags is, indicators of high probability of a sale. Right. The more green flags you can stack on a home, the better chance that you have of making a deal with them, for sure.
What's a recommended tool, resource, software program that you're using to get some of this data?
Yeah. My favorite. So I would say, especially for like somebody starting out who's just kind of the curious, do I want to get into this? Or even somebody who's into this completely. I like have you heard of Deal Machine?
Sure.
Before?
Yeah.
I love that app. It is my favorite app. I have my own app that I had my buddy develop for me specifically and tailor it to my needs, but I use Deal Machine every day. When I'm out and about in neighborhoods and I just see a home that looks super distressed, I'll pull up that home on my Deal Machine app. It'll tell me when they bought it. It'll tell me when the last time there was a loan recorded on that property. It'll tell me an estimated equity. It'll give me the property owner's names and numbers and their mailing address if it's different from the home. I mean, you could run like a huge, really well-oiled operation just off Deal Machine alone. I think, it's a couple $100 a month. That couple $100 a month has made me a lot more than that.
So you're down in Phoenix. You're there for what, a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in that range. You're grinding. Ultimately, feel like you got the game down relative to wholesaling. Mm-hmm. And you decide, winters are too nice here. I think I should go back to Iowa.
So that's hilarious. Because I moved back here in November of last year. Right. And people told me I was crazy. They're like, why are you coming back now? Like, why not 6 months ago, or why not in 6 months? You're crazy. And honestly, things were going really well for me in Arizona, and I was learning a lot. I was doing a bunch of deals and making good money. But out there, I didn't have the vision of me wanting to stay there long term because my family's here in town, and I have a lot of friends from high school here too that still live around here. And I figured, if I'm going to start investing in rentals and flips and really like digging my claws into one area, I figured I'd go back home or come back home and be closer to family and, be able to sort of live in a smaller area like Des Moines and be able to manage all my assets that way.
So you came back here and then just hit the ground?
Just hit the ground running. And it has been everything I wanted out of Des Moines as far as real estate and more. It has been very, very good so far.
If you're a house flipper, execute the burst strategy or do double closings and are in need of money, Little Guy Loans is your go-to lender here in the Des Moines area. Time is money. Loan approvals in 24 hours. Closings in 5 days. Little Guy Loans was founded by Neil Timmins, an investor just like you. Since he has been in over 10,000 homes in Des Moines, there's never an appraisal. Houses, multifamily, and commercial property loans up to $1 million. Check out www.littleguyloans.com.
Now you're branching into flipping, not just wholesaling, but now into flipping.
Yep. got a couple flips going, and
Yeah.
I'm using you for one of my loans.
Yeah.
On
Appreciative of that. Thank you.
Yeah, and right back at you. Thank you. Yeah, so I got a couple flips going. And those are going well. So I'm JVing with Adam Romano, who was on here, I think,
Absolutely.
a while back.
Yep.
He's kind of showing me the ways of flipping and, what to do, what not to do, what you can leave, what not to leave, stuff like that. Learning a lot about that, but still, I'm just digging up a lot of deals where I'm just buying them and I'm turning around and selling them because wholesaling is illegal here in Iowa if you don't have a license,
right,
which I am not a licensed agent. So there's kind of a way to go around it. Got the process.
By go around it, you mean to do it in compliance?
Yes.
While being compliant, but not be licensed.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. Yeah. So basically just closing on homes myself and then turning around and selling them to another investor.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this year alone, I've done so there's 2 flips that I have going on right now. And then I've closed on, 8 deals where I bought them and then resold them right away. Got a bunch more in the pipeline, and it's honestly hectic. So
they can be a lot to manage, especially when you get a pipeline full. Because I know what it's like on the back side of these things to get them to close. Well,
that's also another thing is when you're dealing with distressed homes, it's usually you'll come to find it's not just the home that's distressed.
So that's right.
It's there could be family issues that you kind of have to go in and mediate, or there's escrow issues where you have suspected liens.
Yeah. Hey, do you guys have a lien on the property? Is there a loan? No, there's nothing on the property. And then all of a sudden there's like a litany of things. There's all these water bills, credit card that was charged off 7 years ago. Medical. Nobody told me about. I'm like, well, that's not really how it works.
Yeah.
Medical.
I deal with at least a lien or two on pretty much every distressed property. That was also a big thing getting into this side of real estate is nothing ever goes exactly to plan. Things can go kind of to plan, but you really have to be able to pivot and make make changes, make moves. Yeah. When you're in the escrow process.
All the way up to the day of closing.
Yep. Nothing's done until it's done. That is one thing I've learned in this business for sure.
Yeah. What are you most excited about here in 2025?
That's a good question. What I'm really excited about is, I guess, because I'm learning how to actually flip these homes and how to renovate them. My goal with all of this, what I'm doing now, is because I feel like I've gotten really good at locking up deals for a very a good price. Yeah. My goal is to take these deals that are distressed. I want to renovate them. And then I want to put renters in there and kind of do the BRRRR method, if you're familiar. Cash out, refi those homes tax-free, and put renters in there and have them pay down the principal and cash flow. And that's kind of the goal. Is just to build a portfolio of a bunch of cash flow and a bunch of equity. And I think the best way to do that, and I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, is going and buying distressed real estate for pennies on the dollar, putting in your own work to it. And then no matter what the interest rates are, you can still make it work if you get it low enough.
Interest rate, it's where we're hovering around 7% today, whether it's 7, whether it's 3, whether it's 15, the input matters the most. Buy that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That's what it is. And there's definitely an art to, I think, giving the right offer, because you don't want to be unethical, with giving too low of offers, but you also don't want to offer too much and kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of screw yourself.
Right.
So I think that's a whole nother ball game, is learning, where to give offers at.
Yeah. It's imperative to you're in business. It must be profitable.
It has to,
in order for you to help the next person. And that's it. That really what you're doing is providing, as you said earlier, becomes that ultimate win-win solution for folks, releases them of that liability, turns it back into an asset, ultimately in the form of cash at the closing table, for them to be burden-free and move on.
I think it's important throughout the whole process is making sure that the homeowner is comfortable with everything, and doing sort of temperature checks throughout the whole thing, and just saying, hey, like, this is what's going on. Are you guys still cool with this? Like, how, are you guys still feeling good about this and all that? And so, it's important to get a good deal for yourself, but it's more important to make sure that the person on the other end is, getting their fair share too.
You ready for the final 3 questions?
Yep.
If you had one piece of advice for your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
For my 20-year-old self?
Yeah, I know, we're only going back a couple of semesters.
Well, people think I still look 16, so we might be talking to my future self.
That'll serve you well. I have the opposite.
My 20-year-old self. Honestly, I think I really don't have any regrets from the last 7 years, but Yeah, I think the best advice I could give to my 20-year-old self or any 20-year-old self out there is you don't have to have it figured out at 20 or even in your 20s. I think you should go, if you're whatever you want to do or whatever line of business you want to get into, go in there with an open mind and just have a learning mindset. Don't be too concerned with the outcome. Be more concerned with the process of what you're doing.
That's priceless.
And I think early on, I was probably a little bit more concerned with, all right, how much money am I going to make? How much money am I going to make? But looking back, I think the most important thing that I did was I was just open to learning, and I fell in love with the process of every sales job I ever did. And that's brought me kind of to where I'm at, where there's now a silver lining in all that work I put in, and it's all really coming together now.
2 books that changed your life.
2 books? That's a good question. Okay. Let's see. This is probably a cliche one, but How to Win Friends and Influence People. My grandpa gave me that book when I was like 12. And I think it sat on my dresser for like 6 or 7 years. And I don't think I touched it till I went to college. And I read it 3 months before I got into door to door because I was like, you know what? I should probably open this thing up and learn about people a little bit. And I'll say the reason why it changed my life in a sense is because it really got me focused on thinking about other people when I'm talking to them rather than what am I thinking. So I have all my attention in when I'm in a sales environment or even face to face, just like we're talking now. It's really how am I being perceived? How does this person feel? You know, am I contributing to this conversation in a way that's important to the other person? And I think it's just a different way of thinking that book teaches for sure.
Incredible.
Another book, there's a book written by a rapper that goes by the name of Russ. I'm not a massive fan of his music, but I love his mindset. And he just talks about basically, I mean, it's an amazing book. I think it's called Get Out of Your Head or You're in Your Own Head or something. But he just talks about pretty much the mindset of what it takes to get to where you want to be. Just no excuses, do the work, speak it into existence, you know, build up your own self-confidence, however, you know, in whatever method suits you. And I got a lot out of that book. It's a short read, but it's probably the best book I've ever read.
If you were cast away on an island for 1 year, you could only get 3 pieces of data about your business each and every month. What 3 things must you know to know how your business is doing?
Okay. Assuming it's running on autopilot?
I have to assume it. I know. Yeah. Somebody else, your clone is door knocking.
Okay.
So yeah, you're on the island. Yeah.
If I have a clone door knocking, what would I need to know? I would need to know how many, I guess, like, what are the spreads on the deals that we're doing? I'd probably need to know what my tax person is saying on, you know, how much taxes are going to be so I don't spend all my money on that deserted island. And then the third is, you know, how are the people in my company doing? Are they happy? That's probably it.
I've asked lots of questions, Phil. What's one question I did not ask that I should have asked?
Ooh, that's probably your best question yet. No, you've had a lot of really good questions, Neil. I appreciate it.
Fantastic conversation. I love this. I love the old school methodology. I love sales. Yeah, I cut my teeth selling. First job was, you know, we both grew up in the Catholic school system. And, you know, selling popcorn was like begging for money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember 3rd grade, 4th grade. It's door to door.
Yeah,
I'm hawking something for a school fundraiser.
Yeah.
That lasted 4 years.
Yep.
And then you go to downline and you're hawking pancake breakfast tickets.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
So fantastic.
Yeah, no, I would say to answer your question about what question you haven't asked, maybe, you know, I guess this wouldn't be a question, but what does it take to actually sometimes get these deals done? And like what, you know, how far would you be willing to go to get a deal done? So for example, I have a deal in escrow right now where I reached out to this lady because just due to some list stacking, I saw it's probably a high probability of them wanting to maybe sell, and reached out to her and she said, yeah, I'd love to sell. I own this home with my ex-husband who I haven't spoke with in 2 years. I don't know where he's at. I can't get a hold of him, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to sign a contract with you for this amount and then we're going to close it on this day. And while this thing is in escrow, I'm just going to figure it out. Boom. We put it into escrow. We have a couple liens pop up, and I see one of the liens is like a child support lien that he owed not to his ex-wife, but his ex-wife. Mm-hmm. So what I had different baby mama. So I had to track her down and she lives all the way in Colorado and call her about this lien and say, hey, how much does he owe you? And I had to have her sign off on this piece of paper saying, yep, he owes me this much. I'm entitled to this much out of the proceeds. I'm like, all right, first hurdle done. Well, second hurdle. First hurdle was getting the contract signed. Second was getting this lien kind of taken care of. Now that we got the third hurdle of actually tracking this guy down
Gotta get him to sign
and seeing if he even will sell his house. But based off of all the information that both of his exes kind of told me, I had a reason to believe that he would want to sell. I just got to find this guy. So after doing a bunch of digging, I find out he lives in a small town in Illinois, and 3.5 hours away. Wouldn't reply to any phone calls, emails, texts, nothing. Tried to call his family. They wouldn't reply either. So actually just yesterday morning, I hopped in my truck, and I drove 3.5 hours to Illinois with $1,000 in my pocket. And I knocked on his apartment door. He answered. I said, "Hey man, this is going to sound incredibly insane. And it probably is, but I've got $1,000 for you, and I want to help you pay off your delinquent child support." He invited me in, and we sat down and talked about the whole deal, and we got it done. So we're going to close that next week, and that's going to be a great deal. But my point is not to say like, oh, this is such a cool story or, whatever. My point is sometimes in order to get deals done, you have to be willing to go like beyond and above and beyond to figure out the best way possible to get it closed. And sometimes it takes driving 3 or 4 hours.
Sometimes you got to go the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to go the extra miles to Illinois.
Yeah, the extra miles.
And go back to your roots and knock on a door when you don't know who's on the other side.
Exactly. Just being in real estate for 1.5 to 2 years, that's just one of 20 different stories just like it. So that's what I really enjoy about real estate is just the chase and getting it done.
Phil, I've loved having you on. This has been fantastic. For the audience, people, they want to find you, follow you, connect with you. Where can they go? What should they do?
Yeah. You can find me on Facebook. It's just my first and last name. And then on Instagram, my handle is just GIUDICCII. So Philip, or you could probably look up my name, Philip Giudici. Yeah. So
we'll put the links below in the show notes for everybody.
Perfect.
I appreciate being here. Thanks so much.
Neil, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the show, may I ask a favor of you? Naturally, subscribe so you never miss an episode. But would you rate and leave an honest written review on Apple Podcasts? It does a lot for us here at the show, and I appreciate reading your thoughts. Great guests make for a great show. If you know of another Iowan who would be a great guest, or you yourself have interest in being a guest, well, get on our radar. Visit Investing in Iowa to fill out an application or recommend a guest. And if you want to connect with me one-on-one, go to LegacyImpactInvestors.com. Click on the Invest With Us button in the top right corner, and there you can pick a time for the two of us to get on the calendar and connect. Until next time, keep investing in Iowa.